Welcome to Zimmerman Podcast, episode 114. Today is week 2 in our brand new series, The Path Back to You. If you're new here, we're taking 52 weeks to discover how to become who we're meant to be. Each month, we dive into a new topic, and this month, it's all about energy. Today, we're talking about a high vibe life. The energy that got you here can't take you there. Let's get started and take this next step on the path back to you. All right, you ready? Let's do it. I'm Jessica Zimmerman, and this is Zimmerman Podcast. I'm a serial entrepreneur, mom to 3, and professional oversharer who has spent a decade building my business and helping others do the same. From wedding floral design to business education, features in Martha Stewart Weddings and Forbes magazine, and even writing and publishing my best-selling memoir, Sleeping with a Stranger, my business has kept growing, evolving, and changing year after year, just like me. Because the best thing about building a strong business is the freedom it gives me to live a full life. And that's what Zimmerman Podcast is all about, sharing real, transparent, in-the-moment reflections about how to live a life, build a business, and lead a family through the good, the hard, and the messy. That's what we're doing each week, right here on Zimmerman Podcast. Welcome to the show. In my latest podcast episode on energy, episode 113, I talked about how I believe that God is the highest frequency of energy, pure, white, bright, light, and love. And Jesus was God's energy manifested in human form and exemplified all of what that means, to be a human totally devoid of shame, anger, and resentment, to live the highest vibrational life. I believe our souls were created by God, by that frequency of pure, unconditional love. Our souls were then placed in these human bodies so that we could remember and then operate from that unconditional love. The problem is, as human beings on earth, we often grow up in environments or situations that leave us feeling shame, guilt, and fear. And who we become to survive those situations with our souls intact and sometimes our lives intact has to be undone in our adulthood. Shame, guilt, and fear are the absolute lowest frequencies of energy. These are the energies that are completely opposite of unconditional love. These are the energies that keep us separated from unconditional love and therefore separate from God. If hell is being separate from God, then remaining in the frequency of shame, guilt, and fear is living hell on earth. So many of us become used to that frequency that we don't remember what a better, higher frequency feels like. We choose the familiar over the good. The reason so many of us feel the opposite of content is because we aren't living in alignment. Alignment, which is unique and different for every soul, because each soul is uniquely created by God, by the energy of unconditional love. And each soul has its own unique path, and this will look different for everyone. But alignment is when the thoughts you think match the feelings you feel, match the words you say, match the actions you portray. When everything is on the same page, you don't have that experience of feeling one way, yet rationalizing yourself into believing the opposite. Here's what that looked like in my own life. For a while, I did this when it came to my divorce. The world told me divorce is wrong and I would ruin my kids. I felt in my heart, however, that divorce was the kindest thing Brian and I could do for each other and our family. I would, in the beginning, however, try to logic my way into staying. I wasn't in alignment. When you choose a high vibrational life, you'll know it because you are trusting yourself. There is clarity instead of confusion. Your intuition and knowing are not at war with each other. You are living in your soul's truth. You are living your soul's path. You have peace. You have contentment. Nothing can come to you when you are out of alignment. The life we are meant to live, the abundance we are meant to receive, none of it can make its way to you because your energy is conflicting. You're closed off. When you have lived most or all your life at the frequency of shame, guilt, and fear, it takes a lot of unlearning to raise your vibration. But it is the most important thing you can do to access unconditional love, to commune with God, to live heaven on earth. Deep, deep down, you know the energy of unconditional love because you were created from it. All the things you do to try to make yourself feel better, keep up with the Joneses, post the best on social media, distract yourself with stuff and the next exciting thing, it only seems like it works until it doesn't any longer. I know for me, I ran from my own soul for a long time. I was constantly looking outside of me for those feelings of happiness and joy. Travel would give me doses of it. So I was always, and I mean always, planning the next vacation, the next trip. I thought if deep soul happiness wasn't where I was, wasn't in my home, wasn't in my town, then I had to travel as far as I could to find it. Hell, I even traveled full time for a year trying to find it. We were taught by the world that the answers are outside of us. Make good grades, get into a good school, get a degree, marry someone, have kids, put money in a retirement account. That these are the answers. But none of these matter if you've lost touch with your soul. The answer isn't outside, it's inside. When you feel like you're losing your mind, I'm here to help you restore your soul. A few years ago, I woke up and felt like everything in my life was a lie. I didn't recognize myself or any of the people around me. For the first time in my life, I questioned everything I had ever been taught or told. I didn't know what was true anymore, and I felt like everything I knew was slipping away from me. I went through a complete dark night of the soul until I was forced by something much more powerful than me and my fears to stop running from myself and start facing the truth. That the pain in my life wasn't coming from the world around me, but from the pain inside me. I remember thinking, what if the cause of your pain and the cure for your pain is the same? You. That's what my program, The Path Back to You, is all about. Not starting over, but starting again on a path that will return you to yourself, a path that will heal and refine you, a path that will break you and make you whole. When searching for answers to what felt like an all at once, completely sudden, never ending list of questions with no answers, all I found was the advice just sit with yourself and heal. All the answers are inside of you. And I remember thinking, gee, thanks. That's helpful. I know I need to heal, and I'm willing and ready to do the work to do that, but how? Where do I begin? Well, it took some time, but after years of therapy, researching on my own, trial and error, mess ups and setbacks, I found my way back home, back to myself. In The Path Back to You, I share with you my own personal story of struggle and trauma as a sacred offering. My hope is that through my story, you can better see yourself. I share with you my darkest moments and the steps I took to find my light, the light I had dimmed for most of my life. Throughout all the heartache I've endured, I've finally found peace, and I want to share my roadmap with you. If any of this resonates with you, trust that this episode found you for a reason. Trust the divine intervention. Those brave enough to have embarked on a healing journey know how incredibly lonely and painful it is. I remember feeling completely isolated, like I didn't even belong in this world anymore. It was scary as hell. But I want you to know you are not alone. While I fully believe healing is a solo journey, I think it's totally okay to have a roadmap and a pathfinder who has gone before you to guide you as you return home to you. Join me on the path back to you. Click the link in the show notes or go to jessicazimmerman.com to learn more. And just for you, podcast listeners can get 15% off with code PATH15. That's PATH15. The goal here isn't to become anything or anyone. We were misled. The goal is to unbecome everything we were told, to remember why we are here, and to return to who we are. Unbecome, remember, return. In order to release these energies, in order to move up in consciousness, you must go through an ego death. This is not fun. It's a dark night of the soul. I recently shared my own dark night of the soul experience on my blog. You can find that link in the show notes or the description. I also shared it here on the podcast. It's episode 108. The first half of life is devoted to forming a healthy ego so we can survive our reality. The second half is going inward and letting it go. The ego self is the part of us that keeps us safe. It scans for dangers. It's a beautiful part of ourselves. The problem is when the protective mechanisms become maladaptive. It's important then to call on our higher self that can see beyond the dangers of our daily lives, sees in a larger context, and can reassure that everything is okay. The same tools that allowed you to survive can't help you thrive. Your ego is part of your sense of self. It is your sense of identity and belonging, reaching for pure consciousness, being an empty shell, peeled from everything that is your perception of who you are and what makes your body within this chapter of existence is so self-destructive. In this way, your ego is essential. It's way healthier to learn to love every part of your being and your ego, to develop a healthy amount of ego while still being able to observe, learn, and grow. In the blog version of this podcast, I share a graphic. On the left is your ego self with a list that reads, lives in victim mentality, scarcity mindset, sees mistakes, complains about everything. And on the right is your higher self with a list that reads, takes accountability to create a different reality, abundance mindset, sees lessons, grateful, and finds joy in the little moments. When it comes to the graphic, you can't be on the right without first being on the left. You have to see your mistakes so you can learn from them. If you want to see the graphic, the link to the blog post it's featured in is linked in the show notes and the description. The ego is attached to worldly desires and individual identity. Once you begin the path back to yourself, you can access your higher self. When you are secure enough in your own identity, your higher self allows you to access more compassion and selflessness. Remember, perfect truth and love are the highest vibrations and therefore completely separate from shame, anger, or any other demeaning emotions. If you see your ego has taken over your life, allow that to be a turning point on the path back to yourself, not a stop sign. Become aware of how you want to change and return to who you were meant to be. Unbecome, remember, return. Your higher self is waiting with open arms for you to come home. Thank you so much for joining me today on this path back to you. I hope what you heard resonated with you and you can take it with you into your week. If you're looking for more resources for the journey, you can visit jessicazimmerman.com. I'll see you here next week for our next leg of the journey.